kind of want people to become aware of the level of toxicity that can be in your home and you don't even realize it, and to start looking at every choice that you're making when you go to buy that floor cleaner or when you go to buy that laundry detergent, that you're looking through it through the lens of what am I looking at in regards to chemicals. We want to stay away from chemicals. And welcome back to the Crunchy Carnivore podcast. I am Melissa Weidenhammer, natural rearing breeder and certified canine nutritionist, and I am here with holistic veterinarian, Dr. Jessica Levy.
Hi there.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the effects of chemicals on our dogs and how to eliminate them within our homes and control them as much as possible. There are so many harmful chemicals out there. If you think about like new carpet and new furniture will off-gas, flame retardants, everything's treated with flame retardants now. The PFAS chemicals, those are the chemicals that are in, those are like the forever chemicals. Mm-hmm. That's what's in Frontline, the Seresto collar. These are the chemicals that they find in wildlife when they're found dead and they're tested. And all of those things are hormone disruptors. They have negative effects on the immune system. And so the part of our world that we have more control over, we should try to keep our pets healthy by getting those things out of their environment as much as possible. Cleaners are like one of the biggest parts of that. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you make your own cleaners and we all use specific products to try to have fewer toxic chemicals in our homes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will oftentimes, we have a wonderful co-op that's right by us. It's a natural food store, and so they have a lot of great options there. And so I've been able to find some cleaning concentrates that are, more of like an essential oil based or a citric acid based. Mm-hmm. But there's actually a ton of really good recipes on Pinterest. No joke. Mm-hmm. I actually kind of have a side business where I clean homes and prep them to go on the market, and I don't use any chemicals when I clean, and I have to clean some nasty stuff. So that, I think it's really important for people to understand how there's so many carcinogens in cleaners. We shouldn't be breathing them. Our pets shouldn't be breathing them. They don't have anything on their bodies. Oftentimes we have shoes on our feet. Even in the house, we have slippers, things like that. They're never covered, so they're constantly in contact with the floor, or when they go outside. Of course, we've talked about treated lawns. It is one of the worst. One of the heaviest hitters is lawn chemicals and garden chemicals. But there are so many great options, and usually they're cheaper too, because you'll find things that are in concentrate, or like even my laundry detergent, like you don't need very much of it to do a load, and I don't have to worry about getting a headache from the smell, right?
Yeah.
So there's the idea is that we kind of want people to become aware of the level of toxicity that can be in your home and you don't even realize it, and to start looking at every choice that you're making when you go to buy that floor cleaner or when you go to buy that laundry detergent, that you're looking through it through the lens of what am I looking at in regards to chemicals. We want to stay away from chemicals. Mm-hmm. And so you talked about flame retardants. It kind of feels like they're everywhere, which they kind of are, which is why it's important to start looking at it just through a different lens, because then as you encounter these little choices every day, it's just making little choices, right? It is just, in this instance, it is swapping a natural for a chemical.
Right, and so like you'd said something in our previous podcast about the dog bed specifically. And so like, what do you look for in a dog bed? How do you know if you're getting one that is not going to emit toxic chemicals as your dog is like rolling around on it, mm-hmm. and they're not wearing clothes?
So there's a little bit more now than when I first became aware of that years ago. And I think Dr. Karen Becker was the one that first put something out talking about dog beds. And I just had never even thought about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course I should be thinking about that. And I didn't realize that there was chemicals covering these dog beds either. Like, why is there flame retardants on a dog bed? You know,
Right.
but so what I look for now is, I mean, you can go on Amazon, you can go online, and you literally just search. You can search non-toxic dog bed. You're better off searching organic dog bed. You're going to be much more likely to find things that not only don't have the chemicals on them, but are made with fabrics and materials that are not going to be off-gassing or releasing different things. So I know I've seen ones that are like the inside of it is wool. I know there used to be one that Dr. Karen Becker was in charge of that was found at Mercola. I don't know if you can still get them anymore. That's what I have right now. I've got a couple of different ones, but organic dog bed, and you can kind of quickly see in the verbiage of the listing, like how responsibly they have made this. It's pretty quick and easy to see, like, what is it made out of? Are they saying no flame retardants? Are they saying, you know, some of those keywords? So organic dog bed would be what I would encourage people to search for that. But, you know, I think another thing that, people may not think about is where their Wi-Fi router is. There's the whole concept of EMFs and how damaging that is to us. It comes from Wi-Fi routers, it comes from our computers, our phones, our microwaves. Microwaves are terrible. And the last thing you want to do is put your dog's crate or where they sleep next to where your Wi-Fi router is.
Right. Especially if you have a dog with seizures, like you need to keep them as far away from the router as possible and as far away from the smart meter that's measuring your electricity use. Like you can shut your Wi-Fi router off when you're not home or at night when you're not going to be using it. There's not really a way to call your electrical company and say, take the smart meter off my house. I want the guy to come around and, you know, drive by and see how much electricity I've used. So, but I was thinking the other day, like, there are probably some shields that could be used for something like a smart meter. Just the same way that, you know, people wear shungite crystals and bracelets and stuff like that to decrease their EMF exposure. And so there's probably some way, if you know where the smart meter is on the outside of your home, to shield the inside of it. Because that's something, I mean, houses are built with these things at this point. We don't have any control over where they go.
Right.
I know that one of my sisters, she had a pet bird, and the bird developed like a severe neurological condition. As it got older, it was not very old at that point. And I asked her where the Wi-Fi router was, and it was literally right next to the bird cage.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, who knew? And so it did end up kind of killing the bird eventually.
One thing that I'll bring up too, because we talked in the very beginning and we've touched on this a lot, is how dangerous lawn chemicals are. And so that is something that, you know, we have a pretty good size yard. We have some acreage, and, you know, we don't want weeds and stuff either. We want a nice lawn too. There are organic lawn companies out there. It's not like, well, if I want a pretty lawn, I have to use chemicals. That's absolutely not the case, and it really is not that difference, at least the guy that we found, expense wise. Like it's not even that much more expensive. He comes a few times a year and does his thing. I will say he's 99% organic. There are certain things that he will spot treat with a chemical because that's the only thing that will kill whatever it is. But even though it's organic, I still keep my dogs off of it afterwards because I just don't know. I mean, you just don't know fully, and it's like, you know, let's let it dry on there for a day or whatever before I go have them run through the yard. But there are organic lawn companies, and so you don't have to sacrifice having a pretty lawn if you don't want to do chemicals. There's options for that.
I am of the opinion that if you mow it, it all looks the same. And I don't really care what's growing in the lawn. But I will say, before I went to vet school, I worked for Natural Lawn.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Everything that we used was natural.
Oh.
So it was 100% chemical free. That was a long time ago, so I don't know if it still is. But I think as time goes on, there's more and more options. I know of at least, there's the one that you use, and then there's at least 2 other options, at least in our area of the country, that offer either organic or at least all natural lawn service. These studies have been done multiple times where they've proven the connection between lawn chemicals and lymphoma in dogs, lawn chemicals in cutaneous lymphoma, lawn chemicals in transitional cell carcinoma. So they've directly proven that lawn chemicals will cause cancer in our dogs. And sometimes I run into people who say something like, well, we don't treat the backyard where the dog goes, we only treat the front yard. And that probably works great as long as the wind doesn't blow at your house. Me personally, I've just seen enough of it, and I've had enough pets with cancer over the years that I really do not care about the lawn. Like by far, I would rather not have a dog with cancer. Then you think about like all the toys and the treats, and some of these things are made with different plastics and really kind of gnarly chemicals. Some of them are made from phthalates, which are the same chemicals that the dashboard in your car is made of, and that thing that gives your car that delicious new car odor, that's also a toxic chemical. And so, we have to think, our dogs are putting these things in their mouths, they're getting their saliva all over it, and then, swallowing that back. And so, we probably should not be using those kinds of toxic chemicals in our pets either. Just as far as toys and treats, it's worth knowing what things are made of and what the implications are.
Yeah, so these are just some of the, the few things that, well, I guess it's not a few, it's a lot of things. But these are some of the things that are directly in our control, that it's literally just, it's just making a different choice if we're not doing something already that's chemical free. It's not hard things to do, I think is my point. Figuring out how to
I think
manage
nowadays too, there are enough natural options, that it's like if, let's say you don't want to make your own glass cleaner, let's say you don't want to make your own organic cotton dog toys, I'm pretty sure there's places to buy them.
Yes.
So
yep, there definitely is.
There's a lot more awareness than there used to be. And Melissa, you talk a lot about the water source and how important it is to give our pets not only clean water in a clean bowl, and we're kind of, I always think I forget that maybe there are people out there who don't know that you should not use plastic dog dishes at all. Plastic will leach chemicals into your pet's food and water. That causes not only a lot of contact allergies, but again, other types of chemical accumulation that we're not aware of. So dog bowls should either be ceramic, and definitely a food-friendly ceramic. I remember overhearing, I was at a restaurant, overhearing a couple of ladies talking about their dog's dish and how there had been some sort of picture painted on the, inside the dish on the bottom, and the dog had licked the dish so much that the picture was gone, and they were talking about getting a new one. Yeah, whatever that, if it comes off.
That's not good.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that coming off in your mouth. And so dog dishes either need to be, I prefer ceramic, ceramic that is food friendly, or stainless steel. Now, if it's going to be stainless steel, it needs to be US made stainless steel, because imported stainless steel potentially has other metals mixed in with it. I also am not a fan of glass, because glass is often tinted, and there's something about the colors that are used to tint glass that also have some chemical implications for the dogs.
I kind of just make it a rule of thumb, and I don't think it's super uncommon, that I really try to avoid things made in China. Because we've seen massive issues with dog treats that come from there. We've seen massive issues with different things that they'll have lead in them or whatever else. And so anytime that I'm looking at something, if I can find, I want to know where it was made, because you just don't know the chemical components of what went into making it. It's much safer if you get it sourced from here. So, but I agree, I like the ceramic too. But I think a lot of people, so as far as the water, a lot of people don't think about the level of toxins that are in tap water, or maybe they're not aware of the level of toxins that are in tap water, which it can vary from city to city. Every city tests their water. Every city has different regulations of how much is allowed and all of that kind of stuff. But there are certain things that I want zero in my water, thank you very much, and I don't want my animals drinking that either. And so tap water is notorious for just a litany of things, anywhere from obviously chlorine, fluoride. We could talk about fluoride, heavy metals, pharmaceuticals. People dump their stuff into the sewer system. And like, I mean, I certainly don't want to be consuming pharmaceuticals that I have no idea what it is. And I certainly don't want my dog doing it. And how dangerous is that for them?
The water purification plants are only going to be able to remove certain substances. You're not getting 100% pure water out the other end. You know, in this part of the country, we've got a lot of iron in the water.
Yes.
And so a lot of people use water softeners. Because you have to add salt to the water softener, that you're also essentially adding salt to the dog's drinking water, which can more or less affect them depending on the quality of the softener, how well it works, what you're putting in it, et cetera, et cetera. At least here we're not dealing with, you know, lead-lined water pipes. But, you know, I definitely meet a lot of people who, they wouldn't drink the tap water where they live, but, you know, without thinking, that's what they're offering the dog. And so if you filter your own water, you should probably give your dogs filtered water, just to at least remove some of the chemicals. I've seen a lot of issues with reverse osmosis water. So because people will remineralize the water for themselves, it's kind of like distilled water where everything is removed. Distilled water also should not be used regularly because it doesn't have any minerals in it. What that does is it makes it harder for the dog to concentrate their urine. And I have seen dogs who start just drinking a ton, urinating a ton, having accidents in the house. They get bloated, they don't feel good, and it's because they're drinking water without any minerals in it. This doesn't happen to every dog. So I've seen families where they've got 3 dogs and this happens to one of them.
Interesting.
But if changing the water is enough to get your dog back to normal, like I had another one of these just recently. And so now if people start having these weird symptoms where the dog just doesn't feel well, maybe it seems to be drinking more, urinating more, not quite acting itself. I have people just go to your grocery store, you know, Walmart, your health food store. You can always fill jugs of water there, and what you're getting is spring water and often reverse osmosis water that has been remineralized.
Right.
And just experiment. Do that for a couple of weeks. Change out your dog's RO water for the water that you buy at the store. And like so far, that has really been most of what's needed to make that difference.
Which is so interesting.
And you got to think about that too. Like think about dogs with kidney disease. I mean, their bodies are all about the water that they're consuming.
Yeah.
And some of it too, this is something I didn't realize either. It's these RO waters that you can buy in a store or buy at the gas station. Some of them are remineralized differently, and that explains why. Like I like certain waters, I like the way they taste, right? I like Aquafina, I like Dasani, I like Fiji water. The water that my husband buys always tastes like dog spit to me. And it's because those waters have different minerals in them, and that's what's going to appeal to one person versus another based on, I don't know, what your body needs, I would guess.
So I found this interesting, and I still need to go watch it, but you talked about something that happened, and there's actually a video called Poisoned Horses.
Yes. So it's a documentary that was made by these people who live in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and they're close enough to the city or town, I don't know how big this place is, that their horses are actually on city water. Like basically the water that they were using in their water troughs was tap water from the city versus a well. And so over time, these horses developed these horrible health conditions. Fluoride eats your bones. And so they had like weird fractures and weird sicknesses. The dogs weren't doing too well either. And they documented all this, and at first nobody could figure out what was wrong with them. Somehow they finally figured out that it was fluoride poisoning, and then they had to petition the city to stop fluoridating the water based on all this evidence that they had collected. It's like, it's like 30 minutes or 37 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's not long.
It is available on YouTube. I had to search for it online, and that kind of traced me back to YouTube, because when I looked for it on YouTube, it was not findable.
Interesting.
If I just went to YouTube and tried to look for it directly. But it is on YouTube, and we'll have a link to it in the description box. But it's just really interesting to see what people went through. There's I read a lot about horse stuff as well. So there's a book out there called Secrets of Soundness that's by a woman called Kasri Dodd. And so the whole first half of the book is about, barefoot horses, the lack of necessity of horseshoes, etc. The whole second half of the book is just about this business of this inadvertent poisoning. She was pasturing her horses across the street or across the highway from a Superfund site. All sorts of bad things happened to the horses. One of them slipped in the pasture and broke his pelvis, I remember. But there was all this information in the second half of the book about the link between vaccines and disease and chemicals and disease. And it was really an eye-opener, things that we don't usually think about, like where we live, what was there before. My husband and I moved recently, and the place where we lived before, there was a field around the corner from us that was a cornfield for many years. And I would drive past it every day on my way to work and back. I would see the farmer out there with his tractor spraying stuff on the cornfield. And then one day they turned it into a development. And now there's 6 houses on what used to be a cornfield. And I would think to myself, I hope those people don't think their gardens are organic. Because just last year, that was a cornfield. And so I have a client who lives in a different state. She likes to walk her dogs down these country roads, farm fields all around. Her dogs definitely suffer during whatever season when they spray the fields. A friend of mine used to live in a townhome complex. And every time they would spray the grass, and there was something that they were spraying the trees with, and one year it was too concentrated and the trees died. And so the townhome complex was suing the company that made the chemical because they had made it too concentrated. But every time they sprayed, her dog's spleen would swell.
Oh my goodness.
As his body was trying to deal with the chemicals. He did end up dying of splenic cancer. He was 14 by the time that happened, but she would beg the HOA or whatever it was to stop spraying those toxic chemicals, and their response to her was, well, look at how beautiful the lawns are.
Oh my goodness.
Right, because that's what is important to them. And so if you live in a townhome complex or an apartment complex, unfortunately you may have a lot less control over what is being done in your local environment. So my friend was so diligent, she literally, to take her dog out to go potty, she would put him in her car and drive him to a nearby park that was not treated.
Wow.
In order for the dog to pee.
So now I wanted to bring this up because I had never heard this term. We were planning for this episode, and I had never heard the term Superfund site, which you referenced. I think it would be helpful for you to explain it, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that did not know what that was. So what is a Superfund site?
A Superfund site is a place where there's been some kind of major industry. There's one not where you and I are, but closer to the Twin Cities, where there used to be, I think, an ammunitions factory. And so it's as you're driving south on the highway, on one side of the highway, there's this entire wasteland, just a huge area. There's no homes, there's no buildings, nothing is built there, because it's so contaminated that somebody has to figure out how to clean it up, and somebody's got to pay for it.
Yep.
So eventually that will be us, the taxpayers, obviously. But I mean, I've lived in this area for almost 30 years, and it's been sitting there empty this whole time. So Superfund sites are basically sites where the soil and the water are so contaminated that it's going to take some sort of major epic effort to clean it up. So if you think about where my office is, not far down the road that my office is on is a landfill. There's actually a very large landfill on a street not far from here as well. And so those tend to be heavily contaminated. It kind of looks like this big wilderness area, and you're like, hey, there's nothing in there, and it's behind a fence.
Right.
I wonder what's going on in there.
Right.
It is a super fun site.
So is there any way for people to know what is a Superfund site?
I think there are lists of them by state, and so there may be a way to look them up there. And they're kind of under the auspices of the EPA, so you might have to go to the EPA website and from there kind of look up Superfunds.
Interesting. So just to kind of round out the water conversation, because I think as much as we want to tell you like things to be aware of, to be careful of, to stay away from, it's also helpful to know, well, then what's the good option, right? Like you don't want to just leave it as it is. Now there's a ton of filtration options out there, and depending on what you research and what you look at, you can kind of come to your own conclusion. So we're not saying that there's one perfect way or anything like that, but there are definitely good spring water is always a great option if you can find that. And I think, reverse osmosis water, as long as it's been remineralized, is also a good option. That's actually what we're kind of out a little ways, and that was the best option we could find as a system for our house. We had that put in with it's an RO system that actually has remineralization cartridge with it. So it comes out of the tap, remineralized, which is great. So that's what our whole family and all of our animals drink. There's also the idea of alkaline water. That was a really big thing for a while. It might still, kind of be, and I do notice a difference when I find truly alkaline water. It's very smooth, like you feel good when you drink it.
Yeah, it's really good for you. And so if anybody can afford one of those alkalinizing machines, I would go for it.
And the one that I think you and I are really intrigued by that we want to research more is this concept of structured water. And I mean, this stuff is supposed to be insanely healing.
Yes.
Which is just amazing that you can do that much with water, but.
Right, and so the idea is that we forget that we're all a fluid matrix on the inside, and so our cells are full of water, the spaces between the cells are watery, right? There's all this interstitial fluid and intercellular fluid, and all that has to do with preventing mitochondrial damage, which is basically at the root of pretty much everything that's wrong with us.
Sure.
And so there are ways to get structured water, and I think that's something that we'll really look into much more specifically in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that.
But I think the bottom line for me is that I always ask people, what is the water source for your house? And they'll say, city water, well water, whatever. And my next question is, do you drink it? And some of these people are like, no, heck no, I wouldn't drink that water. Then don't give it to your dogs.
Right.
Give them water that you find appropriate to drink for yourself. My house is on a well. We don't have a softener. I drink the water. So
some well water is great.
Yeah.
Ours is extremely high in iron. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, our well has been tested. The water's fine. I drink it. And that's the kind of thing where they make these water testing kits that you can buy on Amazon. And so you can test the water yourself. You're not going to be testing for every substance, but you probably don't need to necessarily if you're on a private well.
I did for a while before we had the RO system, and I was tired of buying it at the co-op and hauling the jugs, because it's kind of, the Berkey water filter was pretty phenomenal. That one is more of like a gravity filter, and it'll sit right on your counter. It comes in different sizes, and it does not take the good minerals out, but it does do a very good job of filtering a lot of the nasties out. So a Berkey might be something that might be good for somebody that they're in an apartment or whatever, and they can't put a system in their house. It's really, really nice for those kind of things.
And I think too, when we're talking about, buying water for the dogs or putting in a water filtration system for the dogs, when your dogs are raw fed, they don't go through near as much water.
That's true.
As when they're eating dry kibble. And so the water usage in my house is pretty minimal. I have a couple of water bowls out for the dogs at all time. Every day I wash them, AKA with dish soap.
Non-toxic dish soap.
Right, as opposed to just rinsing them or just refilling them. I wash them, I put in fresh water. My cats are raw fed, and honestly, they never drink water.
Really?
My cats don't drink water at all. I've never even seen them. I mean, there's water bowls out all the time. Not that I would, God forbid, force them to drink water that had dog spit in it. but they don't go near the water bowls. And so I think at first I had a water bowl out for them, but they never touch it.
Yeah, back when I was raising litters and I would send puppies home with families, there would be times where I would forget to tell them, this is a rod-fed puppy, like they're not gonna, I just didn't think, I'm so used to it, I think, I just didn't think about it. And I would get texts. They were alarmed, they were on this long road trip or whatever, and the puppy doesn't want to drink water. And I'm like, no, like they're probably fine, unless it's really hot or something like that. Like it really is that different. They just really don't drink very much because they're not in a constant state of dehydration from dry food.
I had one client where after she switched her dogs to raw food, one of the dogs stopped drinking completely.
Oh, wow.
And it freaked her out.
I bet.
So she started adding more and more water to the dog's raw food and successfully made her dog incontinent so that the dog walked down the hallway with urine leaking out of it.
Oh, no.
So as if the water was palatable before, if you were already giving good water and then you switch to raw food, if the dog doesn't drink it, they're probably okay. If they liked the water before, they'll like it again. They might only need it on a hot summer day when they've been running around outside or you take them for a long walk. But a lot of times the water use is really minimal when you're feeding raw food. So if I were to see my cats drinking water or see one of my dogs drinking more water than I would anticipate, like for me, that would be a cause for concern.
Right.
Then I would want to look and say, okay,
what's going
on with you? Yeah.
So we've kind of covered a lot of these things to where we're, creating a less toxic environment for our animals. These are the things that are in our control. These are just choices that we can simply educate ourselves and make better choices. But what we want to talk about too is it's important to realize you can't control everything and you'll make yourself crazy thinking that you can keep every toxin away from your animal. We also don't want people to be like, well, if it's in everything, why do I even bother? Like, why even try? Like, so it's like we want to touch on the things that there are things out of our control and there literally is nothing you can do about those things. And so there's everything from, you mentioned smart meters, they're not going to take those away, right? We've also got 5G towers going up everywhere. That can do a lot of damage. We've got stuff being sprayed in the air all the time. We've got the chemtrails going on. There's car exhaust. There's your neighbors are spraying their lawn. We have that here. Like there's nothing I can do about that. I have to be aware of what's going on, but I try and keep them away. I can't stop my neighbors. Right.
I mean, we kind of chose, one of the reasons that we chose our home is because our next door neighbors do not mow their lawn.
And so they don't care.
Odds are they're not using chemicals.
They're not going to use chemicals.
Those are our kind of people.
So it's just important to realize that, like, don't make yourself insane. Because I was there in the beginning. When I started learning all this stuff, I was like, I don't want a toxin to ever touch my dog. I don't want them to breathe anything. You can't do that.
Right. And I always think, too, if anybody's seen interviews with Stephanie Seneff, she's the MIT researcher who has been researching Roundup forever and a day. And there are interviews with her that are easily available on YouTube. And she says fun things like, well, when it rains, it's raining Roundup. And aside from making me not ever want to go outside ever again, like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
That's just something that we're not in control of.
Yep. So I think it's really important then to realize that there are factors that we just don't have control of. And also, and we talked about this in a different episode too, is the idea that there are genetic components that come with our animals from their parents and their grandparents that, there may be toxic things that are being expressed even if we do things completely naturally. That is why it is important to create good lifestyle habits for detoxification on a daily basis, on a seasonal basis, maybe a yearly basis. You do something a little bit more intensive. You can do, fasting is a great option. And so as much as we can make all of these good choices, we can't choose everything, but then also we can be proactive and aware in helping our dogs or our cats and to detoxify on a regular basis. So we want to talk a little bit about that.
One of the things that's really important to keep the gastrointestinal tract working normally is exercise. And that that normal motion of your dog at a fast walk or a trot, when they're kind of doing this with their bodies. And so inside their bodies, the diaphragm, the muscle of the diaphragm, which in vet school and any anatomy program, we're always taught about the diaphragm as part of the respiratory system, because that's kind of what your lungs are resting on in effect. But the diaphragm on the other side is your entire abdominal cavity and all the abdominal organs. And so as the dog trots along, the diaphragm is essentially going squish, 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 wringing out those internal organs and letting them then refill with the interstitial fluid. And that is what keeps peristalsis, the normal motion of the gastrointestinal tract, away from the mouth and towards the back door. That is what keeps it working normally. And so a lot of times here, especially because winters can be horrible, many people with small dogs just don't take them out in winter. You know, the walking season ends and that's it. They're not going to see the outdoors again until spring comes. And so it's important to take our dogs for some sort of a walk, whether it's around your house or whatever you can do to really get them moving. I know plenty of dogs whose owners love them so much that they only ever go for a sniffari and not an actual like pick up the pace.
We're walking.
Get that diagonal motion going. And so, but you can do a bit of both. And so what I do when I walk my dogs is we can stop and sniff at the first mailbox, we can stop and sniff at the second mailbox, but after that we're going to pick up the pace and then we're not stopping. You know, so, or you can have like one walk per day where you're actually like getting out there and getting their bodies moving. That also means that lymphatic drainage is working, right? All of the entire lymphatic system of our bodies that is designed to pick up the waste and kind of get things moving towards our detoxification organs. And so you can have, you know, one sniff session and then a session where you really need them to get moving as much as possible. So that's valuable, just like in humans, right? In humans, exercise, perspiration, those are helpful things. So they are too with our dogs.
Well, and what I really love is, you know, another thing that you and I have talked about, and I think we maybe even talked about on a podcast, is the concept of grounding. And I know that there, you know, I've brought it up to people before and they look at me like I'm talking about witchcraft. And I'm like, no, like there's actually an energetic exchange. This is not like woo-woo made up. Like when we, you know, get our dogs out to have that exercise, if we can do it on untreated grass so that they have that contact with the ground, that is also a release of toxic energy that is built up as they're sitting inside and being around all these EMFs and stuff. And just like it is for us, there are times where I've been working on my computer all, you know, half the day and I take my dog and we go outside and I'm sitting on the ground, I have my shoes off, and in 15 minutes, the difference that I feel is unbelievable. So like that contact with the ground, obviously sunshine is incredibly beneficial for health. That's only going to, you know, promote health. And so you can really kind of accomplish a few things at one time that will support the detoxification process.
Our electrical systems, right? We kind of forget that the whole body is running on electrical systems. When you talk about things like, you know, nerve conduction, that is all positive and negative charges working with each other. Our bodies are regulated by the Earth's electromagnetic field, but your shoes will block that, right? So, you know, there's plenty of people here who put booties on their dogs before they go outside. A lot of times in winter, they're trying to avoid road salt, or
salt is nasty.
Or sometimes they're just trying to keep their dog's feet clean because people can get obsessive about that a little bit. They need that earth contact. Dogs will joyfully roll in the grass and plow their noses into the dirt, and digging obviously is a super fun activity for them. And so with something like that, if you're trying to maintain a beautiful lawn and you're thinking, well, I don't want my dog digging up my lawn, I don't want my dog rolling around in the dirt, then find an area where that can happen.
They can, yeah.
So we did that at the last place we lived. One of our dogs was a major construction artist or destruction. He created a natural bridge that the other dogs would go underneath. It was very impressive. And so we just kind of designated an area. We're like, okay, you dig your heart out here. And then occasionally he would go to other parts of the lawn and we would just redirect. Like, nope, this is where you can do your excavation. This part is off limits for you. But we did allow him to dig to his heart's content. It was pretty alarming. It was very extensive. He was a big dog, and I have photographs of him like lying in a hole like as deep as his body,
just living his best life.
It was amazing. And so at one point the construction was so massive we used to refer to it as we had upper hole, lower hole, and middle hole.
I love that so much.
And so, but that kind of thing, even when you have dogs who go outside and they just lie on the ground, they lie on the dirt, they lie on the grass. Same thing, they're being nourished by the Earth's electromagnetic field, just the same way that it regulates all of our biological functions. It does the same for them. So being stuck indoors all day is, not necessarily helpful for them.
So some other ways to detox outside from, the exercise, the contact with the ground, being able to dig, get in the dirt. I mean, all of those are wonderful things. There's some other things that we can do. We've talked about the benefits of fasting your dogs on a relatively regular basis. So their digestive system needs a break, and it allows all of that energy that would go to digesting their food to go to other parts of the body and really do some repair and some cleaning and some healing. And so, once a week, it's not a bad idea to, 24 hours. They don't need to eat, for one whole day. Again, if we think about the fact that they are the domesticated wolf, wolves go a long time without eating and they are just fine, right? Our dogs are meant to be the same way to a certain degree. Now we definitely, as their nurturers, don't want to see them go days and days without food. That's a little too hard for us, I think.
Right, although they are capable of doing it.
But they are capable of doing it. And so why I say that is to let them go one day without is incredibly beneficial for their health. So that's something to kind of take into consideration and think about too.
And the raw diet in and of itself supports detoxification. When their bodies are getting real nutrition, they will often start to unload some of the accumulated toxins. So people say to me, now I've started my dog on a raw diet, 6 months in, now he has ear infections. Yep, that's one way that dogs detoxify. So detoxification is the process of gathering junk up from the inside of the body and literally moving it to the outside. There are only so many holes in your body where things can get from the inside to the outside. You can poop things out, you can pee things out, things come out the pores of your skin, things come out the ears. That's kind of a favorite for a lot of dogs. Things come out through the breath. So sometimes after starting raw feeding, I've had people complain that the dog is having bad breath for whatever reason. We might use a couple of supplements to try to support the intestinal tract more, but it is kind of a common thing. Sometimes dogs will become itchy through the course of detoxification. Most of the time, the symptoms that we have are a result of our body's efforts to detoxify. And so, also coming from a homeopathic perspective, there are some things that it's okay to leave things alone. Not every speck of wax that comes out of the ears needs to be treated. In our society, we seem to be kind of alarmist about symptoms. Every spasm, every day that's not 100%, every day when we're more tired, every day when we have a little red bump or something like that, people take alarm at this and think, oh my gosh, like we better get to the vet. And I know a lot of it is like, what if? What if this is something major? What if I'm ignoring something important? But a lot of these symptoms can be overlooked. And so there's some aspect of benign neglect that is beneficial in not addressing every little tiny thing and letting the body do its work of detoxification so that we can live another day. Supplements can also be used to support detoxification, right? Every lecture I go to at a veterinary conference now is cancer in the microbiome, skin disease in the microbiome, ear infections in the microbiome, kidneys in the microbiome. Everything's about the microbiome, which is fine, and our mitochondria are intercellular inside the cells, microbiome. And so there are supplements that we know are helpful for the microbiome, like probiotics are kind of the obvious one. Humic and fulvic acids to, serve as prebiotics to attract the right kind of bacteria or help the correct type of bacteria proliferate in their environment. And then we can also use supplements on a seasonal basis throughout the course of the year to make sure that we're addressing different organ systems at the times of year when those organ systems are working the hardest. There are different ways of thinking about some supplements. Sometimes we're using supplements to address specific health problems. Younger dogs might need certain supplements to help them grow up straight and tall with strong bones, tendons and ligaments that are going to last them a lifetime. Elderly dogs might need different kinds of supplements, so we've talked about things that we use as either treatment of or being proactive against cancer. So those are medicinal mushrooms, boswellia, other types of supplements. And then with the animals who are kind of in between, these dogs who are they're doing great, they don't necessarily have any specific needs, nothing's wrong with them. And so for those dogs, it is still beneficial, I think, to support detoxification throughout the year. So I stole this idea of the Chinese calendar of the year from a book that I read called Staying Healthy with the Seasons by Elson Haas. And the thing that I liked most about the book is that it laid out the idea of the Chinese calendar. So in the Chinese calendar, there are 5 seasons, and in each season, a pair of meridians are more active. I know enough about Chinese medicine to know that like the spleen meridian is not the same as the spleen, the organ, but in my mind it kind of worked to support those organ systems that are designated by the names of the meridians at different times of year. It kind of gets us out of the mode that we sometimes fall into of just using the same supplements all the time.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that. I find what I like and I just do that. But I don't use very many supplements at this point either. I have 2 young, healthy dogs.
Right. And so, and some supplements are great. And you're kind of like, I was using this because it was so fantastic. Why would I stop using it? But at the same time, we do want to offer our dogs different nutrients throughout the course of the week, throughout the course of the month, just so that their body kind of has the choice of, oh, this is what I need most now, and here it is, versus saying every day, here's the same thing, here's the same thing, here's the same thing, which is where we run the risk of them becoming allergic or sensitized to this thing that we keep giving them every day. So that's why I love the guide that you put together about raw feeding, because it really makes it so clear and so easy. It walks you through here's what we're feeding every day of the week. Every day it's a little different, but it's super not challenging. All you need to do basically is make a chart or just remember, I'm gonna give whatever it might be, raw kefir on this day, and because I did that today, then tomorrow I'll use an organic egg, and the next day I'll use something a little bit different. It's not crazy. You're not oh my gosh, I have to buy 15 different things to help my dog get all their nutrients. It's super simple stuff, and you just change it around a little bit, and then you've met their needs, and they've had variety to boot. So I love that about it, that it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
So the plan that I use with my clients to kind of help them understand that idea of changing the supplement seasonally at different times of year also just kind of helps remind people there's more than the liver in there.
Right.
Because I do find people kind of get hung up on things like milk thistle, and they come in and the dog's been on milk thistle for 3 years. It may not be harmful, but what about all the other organ systems? And it's probably not having any effect at that point. So it's kind of a way also to help jostle our dogs out of acclimating to being on the same supplement all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, when you can achieve variety, balance in your dog's diet through variety, really just by having, several different food groups, does not need to be complicated, and there's so many, all of their needs are met, then you don't have to worry about supplementation to meet their needs. So that frees you up then to, like, this is how I think about it. Now I'm freed up to go, okay, so I've got my solid foundation. Again, I have 2 younger, healthy dogs. What can I be building into them? Like, I like to do supplements, but I want there to be a very serious, like a very main purpose. Like,
there has to be a good reason.
Like, I'm not gonna, and I used to be that everything but the kitchen sink and cupboard of supplements. And so, like, I like to look at, what are the types of things that you would do for a dog with cancer in ways that, like, are just good daily preventative things. There are certainly medicinal herbs and things like that I would not do on a daily basis, but there are things that I can do to build into them now that really could set them up for success. But what I also love about this seasonal idea is that it does bring you to, it breaks you out of the monotony. It kind of, like, it can snap you out of it. It's like, this is my routine, this is what I do, I'm feeding what I feed, and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, this is another way to build in variety, and it's not complicated. And because you're only doing a couple of things a few times a year, it doesn't matter what your lifestyle is, you can do it. And I think what's been really interesting for me to learn from you too is that, like, I love herbs, I love herbal medicine, but when it comes to our dogs, the question comes now, knowing that they don't really benefit from a ton of plant matter.
Right.
And so there are a lot of amazing herbs, but when you're talking about a carnivore, how much are they really able to use? And so the way that you made your seasonal plan for dogs, you used standard process supplements to support these, and they come from animal products. So you're not necessarily, there's not this little question now in the back of your head going, well, but how much of this are they really using? Like, we love turmeric, the curcuminoids. That's an incredibly powerful one. I do think there is benefit to that. I think you probably need to give a lot for a dog to have a benefit, but I just have mine built into the CBD that I give. Which I love the supplements that I found. But the standard process supplements are so well made, and they're made with animal products, so that there's not a question about are they really receiving all of the benefit from that. I love your protocol.
Because I actually first designed this for my horses. So I put together different blends of herbs that I give them at different times of year according to the season. And then I tried to give the herbs to my dogs. Wah wah.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't eat them.
Yeah.
And then I also came up against that. They're not going to be able to digest this stuff.
Right.
And so then it's a matter, like, am I going to make a tincture? Am I going to brew a tea? And at the time, the answer was no and no. And so I turned to standard process because they use animal organ extracts in their formulas. They're not using muscle meat. So it doesn't matter if your dog is allergic to this protein or that protein, because that is not what is going into their formulas. Dogs assimilate these very easily, so it was kind of the answer that I was looking for. The other thing I like about it is the flexibility. And so the idea is not to supplement your dog every day, year round, all the time. If you have healthy young dogs, they don't necessarily need that heavy-handed kind of approach. And so you can supplement some of the time and just let their bodies live some of the time. And then the other thing too is the adaptability, as our seasons are going to be way different from somebody living in Florida.
Right.
And so the question is, well, when is it spring? Whatever you decide it is. You wake up one morning and you think, oh my gosh, I haven't given the dog supplements in 2 months. Okay.
Yeah.
What time of year is it now? I think it's summer. Okay, go with that.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter so much, because it will, the supplements will do their part. We're just trying to support their basic detoxification mechanisms, keep their organs functioning smoothly, make sure their bodies have whatever they might need, given that even organic produce is not as what is the word?
Nutritionally? Nutrient dense? Is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
Not as nutritious as it used to be 50, 60 years ago because of, the toll of modern agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're just trying to offer their bodies whatever nutrients that they might need for self-repair and taking out the trash.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, fasting is such a simple thing to do, and it really does do a good job of that as well.
And if you can't do it on a regular basis, just do it whenever. Mm-hmm. And so what we used to do when we fed our dogs twice a day several years ago, occasionally we would go to a movie in the evening or be at a friend's house or not have time in the morning. Then just skip a meal here and there. Don't feed your dogs that meal. Mm-hmm. Yes, they look at you with big sad eyes, and then you leave the house or go to bed.
So you don't have to look at it.
Right.
And feel bad.
They'll still be there in the morning. And they're going to be fine. They're going to survive. And you've lightened the load on their detoxification mechanisms a little bit every time.
So the punchline is really, think about the choices that you're making about what you're bringing into your home and putting around your home. Your dogs are on it, in it, breathing it all the time, just like we are. I mean, we don't want to be, it's not good for us either. And so, if you haven't ever paid attention to this stuff before, start looking at it a little bit differently. And the next time you go to buy a household product, think, wait a minute, is there a non-toxic version of that? It's really as simple as just becoming aware and thinking to ask the question, and that'll kind of gear your choices. And knowing that there are lifestyle habits that you can put into place to promote detoxification and health for both you and for your animals in these different ways. And thinking about, what the water that they're drinking and realizing really how impactful that is. And then, because we can't control everything, because there are choices that we don't get to make, we need to make sure that we're doing what we can to not only not burden our animals' system even more, but then also what can we do to help them eliminate some of those toxins and those things that are out of our control that they come in contact with. And there's a lot of ways for us to support and do that, and in different ways. So any final thoughts on this one?
I think that covered a lot of information.
Yeah, it was a lot of information. Hopefully you're not overwhelmed. Yep. And I think we do have plans. We're always trying to make resources for people to have on hand to follow, and detoxification is a biggie. I think we're absolutely going to address that in a guide or maybe a class. We haven't totally decided how we're going to pull the trigger on that one yet, but and that would, then definitely we would include Dr. Levy's recommendations for the seasonal protocols for detoxification. So we do definitely realize the importance of this, and we want to bring that to you guys. So hopefully this was enlightening, not overwhelming, and give some things to think about. And as always, if we reference something, we really try and put it in the description below. So we'll definitely do that. But until next time on the Crunchy Carnivore podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Our goal is always to encourage others to seek out the holistic approach by way of education and empowerment. You can check out our online resources at wellspringhaa.com. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, Wellspring Holistic Animal Academy, and you can also find us on Instagram at wellspring_HAA. We hope that this has been helpful and that you continue with us on your journey to holistic health for your pets. As always, we're here to be unapologetically all natural.